Good evening. Hello, is this on? Good evening. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for indulging us for a little bit of a delay there in that closed session. But we are coming out of closed session. We're going to agenda item D, call back to order, Pledge of Allegiance. Both pledges, we have no motions coming out of executive session, so we'd all rise for the pledges, please. Do we have any students here that want to lead it? Any students? Mr. Cruz, you know anybody?
I help you.
Come on, Ian, you can do it for us, Ian.
I'll help you. Don't get embarrassed, okay?
Got two more.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the Texas flag. Let them do the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you.
Thank you, students, for taking that without any advance notice. All right, board members, we'll go to agenda item E, adoption of minutes. I think we all need to get our computers here. Anybody's computer's working? Want to take it? Mine went to sleep here. And we can postpone this one. We'll come back to this one later. Let's go on to agenda item, since we'll come back to it while we're doing this. Let's go to agenda item F, public communications regarding items not on the agenda. We do have, looks like 7 or 8 here, and I'm going to read a statement real quick. I think everybody knows this process, but I'll read it real quick. Thank you. At each regular meeting, the board will set aside 20 minutes to afford the general public an opportunity to speak to the board regarding matters of concern or interest to the district, other than the character of any student, staff, or board member. Concerns or complaints regarding specific individuals should not be raised in public forum. They should be considered separately according to applicable board policies. The board requests that comments on any subject, whether positive or negative, be courteous and respectful. At the time the 20-minute limit is reached, the board will proceed to other business, and persons who have not yet spoken will be rescheduled to the latter part of the meeting in the public communication section. I'd like to remind the audience and the viewers that the comments of the speakers reflect their own position or opinions. The board may not discuss or act upon any matter that is not listed under the action item portion of the agenda. Therefore, board members may not discuss the comments of the speakers. Please understand that a lack of response from board members does not indicate agreement or approval of the comments. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the board. A spokesperson for a group shall be allowed 5 minutes to make a presentation. Ms. Gonzalez, Vice President of the board, will be designated the timekeeper. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to call up the first speaker, and then this next one will be Mr. Claudio Cruz will be speaking as a group for the double file. Mr. Cruz, and then next up will be Mr. Cruz. There you are. Okay. Next up will be Janet Wilson. Mr. Cruz, you have 5 minutes. Is that right? You have
Yes.
a group here? Raise
You
your
want to rise?
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening, President Tidwell and Dr. Flores, members of the board. You guys look great. First day of school. Everything went well, I think. And I rise this evening primarily just to bring to your attention what has happened. Yeah, you guys can sit down now. So some individuals, came across in regards to saying that this particular mascot at our school was offensive. And that kind of has escalated. My concern was, good grief, we're a week away from school starting, and this distraction we don't need. My main emphasis is the children, the kids. As you know, I'm there every day, every morning with these students. And what we emphasize is what you see before me, about being brave, being a leader, being courageous, and then the 7 principles of effective leadership that Stephen Covey put out. And that's what we emphasize. kids in general, again, we're talking about children. Kids in general need some animated figure in regards to that they can say, well, what's a brave look like? What's, what do they represent? In order for them to catch, the drift of what we're trying to explain to them. And about being a brave is being courageous, being fearless, and always attempting to do your best. I was at Hernandez for their lunch, and especially watching over my 5th graders as they became 6th graders. And I told one of them, hey, remember, now you're a bulldog, but be brave. And he looked at me and he pictured, the whole concept of what I was talking about because of what he experienced at Double File. So if you think that this little figure is offensive, there's got to be something wrong here because, like I said, the whole idea is about the children. If I would present you a doll here, I'm sure there's somebody in the group that would say, man, he's a sexist. He's a chauvinist. Look at that. Because he brought up a doll. But wait a minute, we're talking about children and what we're trying to train them and the affection that they should have for another. And again, acts of conduct and so forth, But this whole thing has escalated, and I don't know if you've been paying attention. The media's got a hold of it. We've got these petitions of over 1,000 people that signed it. Now, over 1,000 people, 500 or so, it even listed my name that I was from Sandy, Texas. I don't even know exactly where Sandy is, but anyway. But the whole idea is over 500 that reflected Round Rock, Texas. But those people that are not showing that they're from Round Rock are people that have been associated with Double File. They say, what is going on? What are you trying to change? So these individuals that signed this petition are the ones that are saying, wait a minute, keep it as it is, because we're focused upon that. Again, being a brave, being courageous, being fearless. On Fridays when I run with them, I even use that. We're mighty, mighty brave, and the kids look for that. Because, again, the concept is you're always trying hard to do your best. So removing that is kind of, the kids I know is going to be confused. When the staff was told about this, morale went down. Some staff was even crying, what the heck's going on here? Because again, here I am trying to educate these kids, and then this distraction occurs. This supposedly obscene figure here from Indians that really, settled this area, Williamson County. Double File is because of the trail that the Indians established. And again, I am Native American. Look at me. I know you say, wait a minute, what's he talking about? But I discovered that I got, Aztec and Mayan blood. And when I see that, that doesn't affect me at all as far as this particular little caricature that they call. Because like I said, we're talking about the kids. We're talking about the children. And what does that represent to me? And some of our group here have even suggested, well, why don't we call upon the National Indian whatever and let them, kind of give us an idea, is this offensive? Because you guys are the main ones. And I said, well, you can include me because I'm a Native American too. So the bottom line is what we're doing here is trying to promote characteristics of a child that is going to do their best to be successful in life. And this country has gotten so divided right now by little petty stuff, and that's what we're trying to do, is curb that. And my involvement in the schools is primarily promoting that. Again, honesty, integrity, and moving forward. I even teach a class at the Juvenile Detention the Juvenile Detention Center there. And the kids that I see there, I said, hey, again, you made a mistake, but let's move forward with it. But that's what it's all about. It's all about the children, so let's fixate ourselves on that. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Up next, Ms. Wilson on dyslexia. Janet Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. After that will be Jenny, I think, Justin, maybe? Anyway, next. Let's see, you're with your group, right? Dyslexia.
Yes, I am.
5 minutes.
My name's Janet Wilson, and I have 2 sons with dyslexia. I am speaking on behalf of a Round Rock Dyslexia group, which is advocating for Round Rock ISD to form a citizen advisory committee to improve dyslexia intervention, identification, services, and communication within the district. It is estimated that 20% of the U.S. population is dyslexic. In the 2016-2017 school year, the district only identified 3.7% of its students as dyslexic. A U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education investigation showed that Texas failed to comply with requirements of the Individuals with Disability Education Act, failing to identify and provide special education services. While the failure was not limited to students with dyslexia, dyslexia was mentioned 46 times in the 19-page report and the only disability mentioned by name. This investigation has resulted in corrective action requirements, and much improvement is needed to better serve the estimated 20% of Texas students with dyslexia. Meaningful improvement to these services cannot be made without collaboration among stakeholders within Round Rock ISD community. Austin Independent School District and other districts around the state have chosen to address this by forming a dyslexia support committee consisting of parents, community members, dyslexia experts, and staff. We have been appealing to Round Rock ISD administration and the school board to form a similar committee for many months without progress. House Bill 3 will provide additional funding for individual students with dyslexia who are receiving appropriate services. This requires evidence-based intervention provided with trained professionals at the frequency intended by the program. It also requires students to be allowed to continue these programs to completion. District staff and leadership continue to recommend multiple interventions to students with dyslexia that have not shown any evidence to help students with dyslexia. In fact, they've shown evidence to prove that they don't help students with dyslexia. They also continue to recommend stopping intervention before programs are completing, limiting the student's progress. So I'm a nurse practitioner. That means I prescribe medication every day. Now imagine that you were my patient. You came to me because you have an infection. I prescribe you an antibiotic that research shows won't help your infection. Do you think you're going to get better? Or I give you an antibiotic that research does show helps your infection, but I only prescribe you half the recommended dosage to treat your infection. I bet you'd get pretty mad, especially when you don't get better, because I didn't follow the recommendations. We must do a better job identifying dyslexia and prescribing an effective treatment. We can't just continue to treat with what we happen to have as long as we feel like it's the easiest thing to do. We can't continue to waste funds on interventions and services that have proven not to work. We owe it to the dyslexia students within the district and the taxpayers to not waste district and House Bill 3 funds. The district needs help to make meaningful change, and a citizen advisory committee is needed to make that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Up next will be Jenny Taston, I think. And after that will be Jeff Moss.
Hello.
Are you speaking for your Concerned Citizens group?
Yes, I have a group. Can you stand up?
It just says group.
Group. Okay. Hello. My name is Jenny Guston. I have been a member of the Round Rock community for over 10 years, and I'm a mother of 3 children who are or will be attending Double File Trail Elementary. As a representative of a group of concerned community members, I come before the school board this evening to request changing Double File Trail's Braves mascot and logo. Double File Trail's mission states, in partnership with families in our learning community, Double File Trail Elementary is committed to creating a safe, caring learning environment that challenges and inspires each student to work, to be brave, choose kind, and fulfill their leadership potential. In response to their mission statement, I challenge the school board, officials, teachers, and staff that the current environment under the Braves mascot and logo is neither a safe and caring learning environment, nor is it kind. On April 13, 2001, the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights called for an end to the use of Native American images and team names by non-Native schools. Schools have a responsibility to educate their students. They should not use their influence to perpetuate misrepresentations of any culture or people. The Double File Trail logo is racist and derogatory. It is harmful and perpetuates negative stereotypes of America's first peoples. The former president of American Psychological Association, Ronald Levant, stated that the use of these mascots are teaching stereotypical, misleading, and too often insulting images of Native Americans. These negative lessons are not just affecting Native American students, they are sending the wrong message to all students. The American Academy of Pediatrics released a statement earlier this month stating racism has a significant adverse effects on the individual who receives, commits, and observes racism. This is not the kind of positive learning environment in which our children should be participating. Since 1968, the National Council of American Indians has been fighting to change the use of Indian stereotypes as mascots, logos, and symbols in various sports, commercial, and cultural institutions. That was over 50 years ago. Today, the National Council of American Indians supports our efforts to remove the Braves mascot and logo. George Tiger, chairman of the United Indian Nations of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas, lends his organization's name to our cause. He states, "We give our blessing to your efforts to remove this mascot. I fought this thing for years in Oklahoma, and this is a major issue for us. We've gone on record and fought against this sort of thing for decades. It's time for Double File Trail to catch up with history and make change for the betterment of the students and community. I propose we act as a community to remove the name Braves and cartoon Native American mascot from Double File Trail Elementary. Phase it out through the upcoming school years. Involve the community and students of the school. When my family toured Double File last fall, the students spoke with pride on voting and their practice of giving each student who attends a voice through their vote. We can give them a voice on a tangible part of their school by having the students propose and vote on a new mascot. We asked the community for help designing the logo, donating supplies, and repainting the hallways. Earlier this week, we received an email from Jonathan Venable, a freelance graphic designer who has offered his services to design a new logo for free. For supplies branded with the mascot, when those supplies are depleted, reorder ones with the new mascot. As a community, we can come together to stop perpetuating misrepresentation of Native American culture and people. Here is a petition signed by 281 individual supporters, 60% of which are members of the Round Rock community. This petition is still open. People are still signing it. Changing the mascot may not be the popular choice, but this issue needs to be addressed. This petition shows we are not alone in this effort. As a part of the Equity Task Force, the district recently crafted values to include all, which included a commitment to equality. The last point of the commit to equality is models expectations to demonstrate respect, care, and personal regard for all. Having an Indigenous mascot does not respect the humanity of Indigenous populations. I realize school budgets are tight, and teachers and staff already do so much for our students. I strongly believe our community can come together to make this change without requiring a large use of district finances or labor resources. From the few interactions I've had with the Double File teachers and staff, we have an amazing group of individuals working with our children. Let's work together to find a mascot that more accurately depicts how wonderful our school and personnel are. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. I look forward to the next school board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Next up is Jeff Moss, and after that would be Hannah Friedman. And Mr. Moss, you're speaking for yourself.
Sir. My name is Jeff Moss. I've lived in Pflugerville for 45 years. My family's been here since the late 1800s. I noticed people getting sort of upset about this issue. And one of the things that they said was, well, what do the Native Americans think of this mascot? So I noticed the city of Round Rock is kind of proud of the Tonkawa tribe. So I went looking for the native Tonkawas here in Round Rock. And it turns out they're not here. As of 1921, there were only 34 Tonkawa left. And that is out of 17 different tribes that we know about, that were named. More that we don't know about. Today, there are barely 700 Tonkawa, mostly living in Oklahoma. But I did talk to other Indian groups. The American Indian Movement of Central Texas said, get rid of this. Change the mascot. Get rid of it. National Congress of American Indians and their Youth Commission both said, get rid of it. The National Congress of American Indians went further for me and said, these caricatures and stereotypes are harmful, contribute to a disregard for the personhood of Native peoples. I talked to a man named George Tiger, chairman of the United Indian Nations, Oklahoma, Kansas, and you just wouldn't believe in his voice when he's talking to me. He can't even believe that we're still having this discussion. He says, a cause supporting Native American mascots isn't even worthy of discussion. And in fact, one of the other groups didn't even really want to talk to us because it was so ridiculous that I had to call and ask, hey, what do you think about having, a Native American used as a mascot? I mean, literally, they're not mascots. They aren't border collies. They aren't cattle. Native Americans aren't eagles, hawks, panthers, turkeys, cats, sand crabs, bears, sticker burrs, goats, geese, parrots, armadillos, or zebras. Those are all mascots in Texas, in case you're curious. They're people. What I'm seeing a lot of is falsehoods, especially by people who want to keep these mascots. For instance, 7 principles, they don't require racism along with them. The number of people who think an idea is a good idea doesn't equate to morality. Yeah, it might be difficult, but when we integrated schools, that was difficult too, but it was the right thing. And finally, I just got to object to the idea of a happy brave. We literally took these people and marched them, death marched, what we call the Trail of Tears, and eradicated them.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Next up is Hannah Friedman, and then Kiana Pitts.
And I'm speaking on behalf of a group. Okay. All right. Good evening, Superintendent Flores and members of the board. My name is Hannah Friedman. I am a part of the group Educators in Solidarity. We're a local group of educators committed to anti-racist practices and systems in our schools. So I'm here to read a few letters that were submitted by Round Rock educators who wish to remain anonymous. So this is the first one. I am a teacher with 15 years in the district, and I wish to remain anonymous. Like students across the state of Texas, Round Rock ISD's diverse student population needs a diverse teacher population. Retaining teachers of color is difficult. However, when those teachers are afraid to voice serious concerns related to equity and bias, it is even more challenging to retain them. In 2018, 2 reports published by the Education Trust revealed that teachers of color are passed over for leadership opportunities, pigeonholed into assignments, and altogether feel unrecognized and undervalued. When teaching about diversity issues, they are seen as too assertive or too aggressive, oftentimes. Not only are these the exact feelings I can relate to as a Round Rock teacher, but these reports provide research-based evidence that these discomforts and microaggressions are far too real. Here are a few I've observed over the last 15 years. I watched colleagues forfeit personal days to worship on non-Christian religious holidays. I've seen highly qualified teachers of color passed over for teaching advanced courses or to serve in leadership roles. I've heard colleagues disparage immigrant students and families. I've observed teachers of color receive unwarranted reminders to remain politically neutral in the classroom while white teachers did not. A colleague once told me that civil rights history isn't real. It's only in the teaks because some people had chips on their shoulders, and so on. Because microaggressions cut deep and leave scars, I can't help but wonder what our students of color must endure on a daily basis. We work hard to create safe spaces for them within our classrooms. But what happens when the workplace is not mentally or emotionally safe for their teachers? Students need to see diversity among their teachers, and they need teachers who look like them. But in order to teach these students effectively, teachers of color need to feel safe and valued all the time. Successful recruitment and retention of teachers of color demands a culture shift. It means that teachers of color need to be heard without fear of retaliation. In order to address these issues, I ask the board to commit to erasing the color line that exists in Round Rock schools, commit to placing more teachers of color in advanced curriculum and leadership roles, and commit to implementing implicit bias training for all district staff. And there is one more as well. Dear Round Rock ISD Board, when I moved to the Austin area, I was worried I wouldn't adequately be prepared to teach white students because I never lived or interacted with so many white people since college. Little did I know, but I was more than prepared to teach in Round Rock ISD. I was actually unprepared to deal with the tone deafness and lack of cultural awareness in the workplace. Our district can set a precedent for a more inclusive and culturally aware standard for educators. It must happen and needs to happen now. Round Rock ISD needs to improve interracial and intergroup dialogue between and across all campuses. The lack of empathy and misunderstandings of what it's like merely existing of a teacher of color takes a toll on my emotional and health status. It isn't easy to confront colleagues about why something they did with racist undertones is wrong without being accused of being a social justice warrior. How do you think it feels for teachers and students at Stony Point when every time the school's name is mentioned, people instantly think it's the worst place to teach? There are teachers in this district that are proud to not have any apartments zoned to their middle school. What is the district going to do to shift our mindset? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Up next will be, we've reached our 30 minutes mark, but I'd recommend we go ahead with 3 more speakers. Go ahead. So, Ms. Kiana Pitts, you're speaking for yourself?
No, I'm speaking for a group. Round Rock.
They are. Raise your hands.
Round Rock.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, good evening. My name is Kiana Pitts, and I'm standing on behalf of Round Rock Black Parents. I have a letter to read. Dear Round Rock Independent School District trustees and Dr. Flores, thank you for implementing Beyond Diversity for All principles, and congratulations on a wonderful Equity Summit in June. I was able to attend as a parent and even made a cameo on the recent RRISD Back to School promotional video. While we are making progress, we are concerned about the soft bigotry of low expectations of our Black, Brown, and special education students. The Every Student Succeeds Act emphasizes the role of educators and parents as important stakeholders to engage. From our B rating that was released by the TEA today to the academic gaps and discipline disparities shown in the draft board goals, it is clear that you are in need of a parent and community support. You did not ask us, but we have some solutions to the institutional and systematic racism that currently plagues our system, as seen through the achievement debt and overrepresentation of Black and special education students and discipline and school culture that makes it difficult to hire and retain Black teachers. At the World Class Summit, Dr. Flores, you announced that the district would be hiring an executive director of equity and inclusion that would report to him directly. We would like to suggest that you hold off on hiring of this position. We believe that the money would be better spent on building the capacity of our superintendent, board, cabinet, principals, department heads, and instructional leaders on campus. Our suggestion even allows for a parent and student voice. For the price of one single new hire, Round Rock ISD can have 3 Beyond Diversity workshops with the capacity of 240 participants. For the same cost, for the cost of one singular hire, you can provide capacity building support for the superintendent and his executive leadership team, campus administrators, instructional coaches, and additional instructional leaders, department leads, and leaders of special education and English learners department. This programming also allows for a group that incorporates diverse family and community voices as advisors of school and district racial equity transformation, allowing district leadership to become responsive rather than reactive. And most importantly, it's the implementation of Students Organized Against Racism, SOAR, leadership development. SOAR allows for 80 student leaders across the district to inform the work of equity, diversity, and justice. This could include the 28 member student advisory board, as well as members of marginalized populations of students like the Black student unions in El Amistad. As you can see, we are not merely complaining, we are offering solutions. This work can be even tied to Title II funding, which holds schools accountable for improving student academic performance and and is specific to the elimination of disproportionality and disparities. We have emailed you a more thorough explanation of this programming with included costs. We have paper copies for you today. Our children are priceless. Round Rock ISD touts leadership principles of including all through committing to equity, valuing relationships, and championing the needs of students and community. This solution is a no-brainer, and we would love and like to see your leadership principles in action through the implementation of our proposed plan. We are here as partners and looking forward to your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pitts.
And
Up next is Mr. John McCormick. Mr. McCormick, and then after that is Fabian Cuero. So we have 3 more speakers.
Yes. Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Flores, good evening. My name is John McCormick. I am a Round Rock resident and a pastor in this community. Been pastoring in Round Rock for 10 years now. Many of you should know, if you had a chance to check your emails, I wrote you today about a newspaper article that I read this last Saturday. It was an article about an employee of the Williamson County Sheriff's Office who has posted highly insensitive and offensive things on social media. Now, you may ask, well, that's Williamson County, the Sheriff's Office, John. Why are you here talking about it with us? I'm here talking about it with you because while I recognize that you have no input in how the Williamson County Sheriff runs his department, you do have an input in how you run the district. As trustees, you are stewards not only of the fiscal things that go with the district, but also you are the trustees and stewards of morality. What do I mean by that? You have a voice in this, because what you can do is go to the sheriff and say, we are highly upset and really concerned about your lack of discipline for one of your employees who did something that was egregious. And so what we would like to do now is let you know that since you did not do the right thing, maybe we shouldn't partner together. Now, let me suggest to you that there's really one option left given all of the factors involved, and that is to formulate your own police department. When you formulate your own police department, then you get to have input, direct input in the values, the policies that are made, and how law enforcement is going to be implemented. As it stands now, you have no input because you have no control. You create your own police department, you have control. And when things like that happen, then you get to hold the administration accountable. Inaction is not an option. When I was growing up, I was told that when people do something, when they act a certain way, believe who they are by how they act. And so I'm asking you now to do what you have said in your campaign speeches, and that is to demonstrate your concern for all Round Rock students. Because if you do not act, then you are telling us how you feel, and your citizenry is very concerned about that. I trust that you will act.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Up next is Mr. Fabian Cuero. Yourself.
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, and trustees. So about 3 years ago, I stood here and asked for a language lab at Stony Point High School, and I'm excited to say that that has finally come through thanks to the help of Mr. Mark Gavehart. He's seen this go through. So the students at Stony Point and also McNeil High School have a language lab. The students are grateful. I know that, being a parent, my daughter and son would have a great time at the lab, and especially for the IB students. But, having said that, it was a little disappointing that I had to drive this conversation 3 years into it. finally done, but it was mostly myself going in, meeting, taking time off from work to get this thing done. So, Mark, thank you so much for seeing this through. I really appreciate it. The next thing I wanted to talk about was I've been a volunteer and a mentor for a long time here in the district. I sent you guys an email yesterday, so hopefully you guys got to read it. I'm passionate about volunteering. I believe in volunteering. I believe in mentoring. I got through mentoring thanks to the help of my good friend who passed away years back. She was the lead coordinator there. She implemented a lot of great activities for the program, field trips that, we took students that normally don't get the opportunity to see things because of their socioeconomics. And she had a vision. That vision was for the mentors to play a big role in the students' lives. Now, I learned as of last year that vision has changed thanks to the new management, in which I strongly oppose with that change, is taking that vision that my good friend built up to now and literally has shredded to pieces. And sorry, I'm so passionate about this because I love the kids that I mentor. But you guys need to go back, reevaluate what's going on. Let's get back to the basics, the people who are supporting these kids. Get in the room, talk to them, find out what works, what doesn't work, and let's make it happen. Because otherwise, I myself will not be part of that program, not the way they're being driven. The top-down approach does not work for me. These guys are not out there spending time, energy, resources for these kids. So let's get back to the roots that my friend, wherever you are, built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuervo. Okay, board members, going to agenda item next. Done communications, superintendent's report.
Mr. Chadwell, should we go back to the minutes?
Sure. You got it ready?
I move that the board approve the minutes for the board meetings held on June 20th, August 5th, and 8th, 2019 as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Math. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. Now we go to agenda item G, superintendent report. Dr. Flores.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We do have 3 items tonight on the superintendent's report, and before we start that, I want to make sure that I think it's been noted already. We had a great first start of the school year 2019-2020. School year was an outstanding start. I want to thank all the staff and parents and community, and especially the students as well that showed up today. And a lot of the board members were on campuses today seeing all the bright and shiny faces. And so what a great start. So we're off to a great start. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I think Dr. Presley has a short presentation, or we'll discuss a short discussion on safety and security task force update. Dr. Presley.
Thank you, Dr. Flores, President Chadwell, members of the board. This will be brief. I just wanted to update you tonight that the task force continues to work, our safety and security task force. I always want to have the opportunity to thank all the members who have spent so much time over the last year to bring options to the board. The target is still September. The task force has requested, and I believe they sent an email to the board requesting that a special called meeting be arranged so that they can present their options in totality and allow time for plenty of discussion. I know Ms. Moore is here tonight, and Judge Aurora, who are leading that group, are both here tonight. And so that's really it. They met this past Monday. They have another meeting this upcoming Monday. And so I want to thank you for your support of the citizens that are working so hard on this initiative. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But there's really nothing to present tonight other than to let you know the work continues. They're nearing the end. And they're still on target for a September presentation of options to the board.
Okay, no presentation tonight. That's just an update, quick update on that. Is that right? Okay. Any comments, questions, board members? All right, that was quick. Thank you. Agenda item G2.
Thank Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, we did have Dr. Drew Howard, Senior Director of School Governance and Leadership Support for the Texas Education Agency, with us tonight, or last Thursday night, and we started work diligently on student outcome goals. And it was stated before that student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. So the great work on Lone Star Governance has began, so I commend each board member for that. And as we all know today, the state released its district and campus ratings, and we were proud last year to be an A. Obviously, this year we are a B, with changes from year to year to the accountability system, as well as some unique challenges that we're going to focus on this year. I am still, as superintendent, no less proud of our hardworking teachers and principals this year for that B rating. I do want to highlight, because I do think that you're going to hear all kinds of information. People come up with their own thoughts, their conclusions. But I want you to know that the district scores were actually higher this year than last year in the 3 domains that we get tested on or we get rated on. And more campuses actually earned an A this year. 73% of Round Rock schools earned either an A or B. We also had 29 campuses earn a total of 109 distinction designations. And I could go on and on and on, but obviously there's work that we need to do. We know that. We also know we point with pride. I just said the pride that we had, but we also view with concern. And we view with concern the campuses that didn't do so well, because out of our 55 campuses, not all did so well. So our charge this year is going to be more laser-focused and clearly impacting each and every campus, and we feel that we are up to that task, because we did have 3 campuses that did have a D rating and 1 an F rating. And that is why our overall grade dropped to a B letter grade. And I don't disagree with that B at all. I'm not going to commend or disregard the Texas Education Agency and our accountability system. I won't do that, because we can't declare victory until every campus has success and all students are performing at a high level. We will, and we have already began all summer working on action plans at these schools, and I'm going to need, and we're going to need help also in understanding that there's things that we're going to need to do differently. The academic freedom that Round Rock is always known for is really something we take great pride in, but also there's times that we have to be more prescriptive with what's going on, and you will see that from this administration as well as the teachers and principals on those campuses. So again, I think there's no doubt that the work that we have, and why I share this, it does go with this presentation, because again, if we commit to the Lone Star governance model, I can tell you, I have no doubt that this district will return to that A rating. So without further ado, the work that was started or began last Thursday, continuance today. There was some information sent out yesterday, but we can start with Dr. Kathy Malerba and first Mandy Estes, bringing us to our preliminary student outcome goals. So without further ado, Mandy Estes.
Okay, good evening. I'm sorry, it's been a busy day today. Good evening, trustees, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores. We are here tonight to continue the discussion from last week about student outcome goals. And as Dr. Flores said, this is part of our continuance into the Lone Star governance model. So what Kathy and I have done is we've incorporated some of the themes that we heard in playing back the tape from last week and reflecting on our notes from the discussion that we heard and felt resonated throughout the board. We may have some more further discussion about that tonight, but the things that we captured were this sense from the trustees that the goal should continue to focus on reading, math, college and career and military readiness, and discipline. So we identified those 4 areas that seemed to be of concern or interest to the trustees. We also identified that there was a discussion about focusing these goals around growth and celebrating the growth of all students at all levels. There was quite a bit of discussion about making sure that each student, wherever they were, was continuing to move forward. And then there was another piece about focusing perhaps on either performance or growth. We also heard that progress monitoring should perhaps focus on cohorts of students as they move through the school. And then there was a bit of a discussion about constraints. And you'll remember that constraints exist for both the superintendent and the board under this model, and they are there to represent the vision, the board's vision and the community's values. And so we heard discussion about constraints might include setting a level of performance below which campuses may not drop. And so with that, we framed up some proposed goals for your review and revision tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy to walk through what those are.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to walk through a little bit of context in each of our proposed goals, and then I'll do that fairly quickly, and then at slide 13 we have a slide with all of the goals on it. So if it's convenient, we'll take your feedback on each of the goals at that time. So the first two slides I have for you are just a little bit of context about this notion of focusing on growth as opposed to achievement, which was what we had in the previous goals. That there was the focus on the higher levels of achievement at meets and master's grade level. If we were to move, say, to the STAR progress measure, and you started thinking about baselines and targets, I wanted to bring in the context that the state ESSA plan actually has some built-in targets for us to consider, and they're a target for each student group. So if you look in that first box, just to kind of focus on just a few numbers, you can see the first line is the target that we're working under now. The next line is the district's current performance in 2019. Then you'll see that in 2022-23, the targets move up as part of the state's plan. Every state has to have an aggressive plan for student growth. And then the final line for both the reading and math sections, the number of points it would take for us to move from here to that level of performance in time to meet that increasing standard. I was very intrigued about the notion of following grade level cohorts, and so did a little exploration and have a few thoughts to share on that. We can absolutely report back to you cohort level performance on the goal progress measures, as well as campus, as well as student group, for any metric basically. I did want to notice though that I probably couldn't recommend setting a target around cohort performance because there are variations from grade level to grade level that we have no control over. So, for example, or that I can't explain, maybe is a better way to put it. So, for example, if you'll notice, the fifth graders across the state are scoring at the 80% in their growth measure. Remember, they have an opportunity to retest. Then there's quite a drop-off among sixth graders across the state. We don't know if that's because of the lack of the retest opportunity, the big shift from moving from elementary to middle school. But since we don't have an understanding of what causes those changes kind of across the board, we would just recommend not setting targets around cohorts and instead sticking to that all students group and kind of working the rolled up across all the grade levels target, which we've included in our proposed outcome goals. So these two goals focus on growth in reading and math with the current baselines of 73 and 74 as the district level rolled up growth percentages, and then propose moving to the new ESSA standard 1 year in advance of when we will be held to that standard anyway, which would be 2022. So that's a three-year timeline to meet those new targets. And you can see I've just listed a few options for goal progress measures. We're going to recommend revisiting that once we're really clear on the goals, but I wanted you to see sort of some of the options that we have there. So just in summary, the team here is excited about the idea of focusing on growth, and we think the STAR progress measure would be a good way to do that. It's a shift from worrying about the level of performance to focusing on every student, no matter where they are now, growing at least a year or more. It also has the added benefit, because it's aligned to the state accountability system, to helping us out in the school progress and the closing the gaps domains, which were two of the toughest ones. Round Rock does fantastic in just baseline student achievement, but growth we could stand to focus more there. And then, as I said, focusing on that 2023 target is kind of a natural thing to be shooting for. We're absolutely open to hearing your thoughts on additional timelines and targets, but I just wanted you to know that that was out there. So on slide 13, we'll be asking for your input on the metric itself, the populations of interest, the targets, and the timeline. The student outcome goal around discipline at the workshop, we didn't catch a lot of conversation around changing this goal, so we propose continuing with this goal. We've made some progress and would like to stay the course on that. This is a very easy one to goal progress measure because the data accumulates every single day of school, so whenever it fits into the monitoring calendar, we can easily report to you status as of that date. So the district staff recommends sticking with this goal because it's aligned to our focus on racial and educational equity, our expansion of restorative practices, social and emotional learning for children and adults. But, of course, we want to give you an opportunity to reflect on that and see if you have any modifications for us. The final goal that you had settled on was a continued focus on college and career readiness. This one is just such a strength for the district that the chart here shows that we have already exceeded the state goal for the 2023 to 2027 timeline. So this is just wide open for wherever you would want to go with it. We're way ahead of the state on this metric. So what we're proposing for your consideration is to broaden our definition from just college readiness to the broader definition of college, career, and military ready, and moving from our baseline of 83% to 90% over the next 3 school years. We have a ton of possible goal progress measures, which you're accustomed to seeing us present to you anyway, and everything from advanced course enrollment to APIB results, but maybe we'd want to focus more on industry certifications, kids enrolled in CTE courses, and so forth. So again, just in summary, we had been focusing the goal on testing at college-ready levels, doing exceptionally well there. 83% is our baseline for the class of 2018. But broadening the goal would encourage campuses to keep those college readiness rates high, but to even push harder on career readiness. So, as I very briefly mentioned, in terms of goal progress measures, I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves trying to get into the weeds on that tonight. I think once the goals are very clear and we really dig into the district improvement plan and get the strategies in place, then it'll become a lot clearer which goal progress measures we want to use and what timeline we'll use throughout the year. So, I'll ask Mandy to perk back up. Here's each of the goals, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are, again, on, well, the baselines are what they are, but the targets, the timelines, even the metrics themselves, perhaps you're not interested in using the STAR progress measure, for example. And I did provide, I noticed some of you had your workbooks from the workshop, but I do have another folder. It's sort of the blue pocket folder there. So we do have the baseline data by campus for the STAR progress measure for 2019, brought back the district level discipline results for you, and then the college career readiness for each of the metrics by campus, just in case you wanted to take a glance at it. But other than that, we're ready to hear your discussion, and I'll take notes.
You have more? I've got a couple questions here.
No,
yes,
and that's
and
we
questions.
wanted. Yeah, we wanted. Yes, sir. We just wanted to stop here and engage in the discussion and get feedback.
Okay, I think Ms. Weir and then Ms. Vessa, I think. So.
Okay, I guess I had a few. Can we go back? Actually, when I printed it all, I had a lot of questions, but then first I wanted to go back because you made a statement earlier about somehow this is the percentage of all students were able to drill down and look at we're not looking at overall goals. You
want to look at the reading and math slide? Would that help?
Yeah, and like, what does expected growth mean? And if we're looking at the total percentages, how are we really getting down to, making sure that individual students are making progress?
That's a very good question. So the rolled up number doesn't necessarily make it obvious what's getting measured. So to earn your progress measure, you have to grow a certain number of scale score points from one year to the next year. And that's only available, of course, in certain grade levels for reading and math. So there's actually even a few half points built into those baseline numbers. So some students, for example, will move from does not meet grade level up to approaches, but still not quite have the requisite number of points, and so TEA gives them a half point. That's all accounted for in that number. That includes some half points. That's actually a little more than 73%. I think it's about 74% of students grew enough to earn some points. Did I answer your question?
So each student can earn either a 0 points, a half, or a whole point based on the change in their skill score.
And then are we going to, I guess I'm just trying to work through what
Yes.
that looks like and how we would get that information and be able to say that we're really doing it for all of our kids and not just having some groups that are, doing really well and other groups that aren't doing
Right.
as well.
Well, I think even if the target of the goal was just focused on the all students group, we can still monitor against these group level targets or have the same target for all groups. Though that gets a little tricky and the reason that TEA and the federal government don't do it that way anymore is because that was sort of one of the weaknesses of the No Child Left Behind approach of one target for all. And originally TEA proposed that, and the USDE kicked it back and said you need to have realistic targets for each group based on where they are now, which is reflected here. But you'll see the 10-point increase. So the current target, for example, for all students is 66. That's going to go up a full 10 points in 2023.
76. So I guess that was when I was kind of taking notes and looking at it after you sent the email and thinking about sort of the equity task force and what's going on. And I know that this is a state goal, and you just said we can't do it the same for all kids. But it does seem like if you set your goals lower for some kids than for other kids, you're only going to meet that lower goal, right? You only get what you're working for. And so if we're expecting certain groups to get to 69, or even 72, say African American students, our target is 72, but for Asians it's 87. What's the incentive to push the groups that are struggling already? Like if that, and I don't know how. I just feel like we can't just ignore that and say, oh, we're going to go by and I realize this is the state of Texas. I realize this isn't something that we've set. But we may want to do a little bit better job of saying we don't want to work to a minimum. We want to make sure at every racial group we're moving everybody up to the same spot, and we're going to expect the same from every group because they can get there. Right? I mean, we should be able to get them there.
And I think that's a fair way to look at it. And as a group, that's what you can choose to, have unique targets for each group or to set the same target for each group, knowing, for example, that a very high achieving group is already there and past it. But that's the sort of guidance we're looking for from you.
Yeah, maybe don't come down if you're already above it, but if you're not, everybody needs to get to some sort of a minimal level.
And that was actually how some of the current board goals were developed, with that very thought in mind, that those groups that are already at a very high level would maintain or push forward, and the ones that were not yet to that level would show larger growth year over year.
Yeah, I just don't want to make sure. I want to make sure that we don't set our expectations lower for some students than for others, when hopefully I mean, they all can get to the same spot.
Okay, Ms. Vessa, then Mr. Math.
So I admit, when I first looked at these, I was like, I'm not sure what this means. I mean, that was the first thing. I'm like, wait, didn't we talk about meats? It was like a different vocabulary. And then as you were talking, I'm like, oh, okay, she's talking about when we were talking about the 1.5 years of growth. That's what she's talking about. And so I think the thing that initially sparks me is like, these aren't intuitive. Like, it's not like when we talked about Lockhart doing 1.5 years, it was easy. It was something that everyone could get on board with and understand. And I just don't know that these board goals are something that's easily understood by everyone to the point that, like, it could be a mantra to accomplish. Additionally, like, it may be an aggressive goal, but it doesn't appear like it's an aggressive goal because it's saying, okay, well, you're going to meet growth. I would assume that's 1 year. I would assume that the expectation is that every student grows 1 year. Is that correct?
That would be the equivalent of meets expected growth, and then there's an exceeds measure as well from TEA.
So we would be saying that in 3 years, we're okay with 24% of our kids not getting a year of growth. I just don't know if I can buy into that. I mean, that might be an aggressive goal. Like, it's just hard for me to wrap my head around saying, yes, our goal is that 3% more kids would get 1 year level of growth. That's just hard for me to be excited about. Mm-hmm. I think the last two, I'm okay with switching to because I desperately want us to do more to get kids workforce ready and not just college ready. So if we're expanding the number of certifications that kids can get and the other opportunities within our district besides just, being college ready, I'm all for that. Let's do, have more opportunities for kids to get a job that pays well when they graduate and be ready for the workforce. So that, or for the military, or whatever they choose. College is not for every single person, and so I'm in full support of change. If this will get us to have more focus on a broader spectrum of course offerings for our students, then I think that's awesome. So the final
can I
two...
just piggyback on that before you jump? Sure. Because that was my note, too, on that. If we're doing so well on college readiness and the college tests already that we're so far above the state, it probably is in the career readiness that we need to maybe bump the kids. I don't know. So, sorry. Go ahead.
That was pretty much all I had to say.
All right. Mr. Math and then Mr. Moses.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I missed last Thursday's meeting, and I was watching it, and I felt like buzzing in, but my imaginary buzzer wasn't working. But I had two themes that that kept coming over and over again. One is I personally felt embarrassed that I didn't know what the board goals were. I'm on the board, and I didn't know what the board goals were, and shame on me for that. But this is my second year round, and I just want to make sure that we have a small number of goals, and I like the fact that we're focusing on 4, because I prefer 3, but I could remember 4. And I like Trustee Vessa's suggestion that the more we could have it as memorable, where we could use it as a mantra and all know what that goal is, where we could recite it off the top of our heads, we're all talking the same language, and we're all striving toward a known goal that we all know about. So that's one piece of feedback. And then the second piece of feedback is that I still feel that these goals are all in the aggregate, and I feel that our largest challenge as a district is bringing up the folks from the bottom. And whether that's the 4 or 5 lowest performing campuses, or the 2 or 3 ethnic groups that have the most disciplines, but I almost feel like each of the goals needs a part A and a part B. And the part A is the aggregate, and the part B is a really targeted goal for those that really need it the most. And I don't feel comfortable having it as a constraint. I don't feel comfortable having it as something we could look up if we want to look it up. It needs to be in bold print, because that what gets measured gets done.
Thank you, Mr. Math. Next, Mr. Moses, and then Ms. Gonzalez.
Thanks, sir. I agree with, I think, a lot of the sentiment. I think we're all wanting to get to that same spot. And I agree. We want to make sure we're not just looking at our, because we've talked about this at the meeting. We've been high performing, but whenever we have 73% of our district get A's or B's, it really masks those that don't. And so I guess the thing there I'm curious about is, this is kind of an LSG question, are those going to be more goal progress measures that get reported back to the board for us to review and comment on and say we need to see focus there? Or is that actually the broader, bigger goal? And then that's, I think, I get a little clarification there. And then the second one is, I'm all for mantras, but if the mantra is not realistically achievable, then we're just doing a mantra for a mantra. And so I just want to, my question then would be is, what is, if we were, I want us to stretch, but I also don't want to pop a hammy. Like, what is something that's actually, you think, reachable and realistic in the time frame we're talking about? Because, look, if the goal in reality, yes, every student 100% should be meets or exceeds grade level. We all agree on that. But whenever your starting point is in the dugout, you can't then expect to wake up the next day and be on third base. And so we got to make sure we're building towards that at a rate that is achievable for our students, achievable for our staff. And so I just want to make sure if there's a way to stretch these more, I'm all for it, but also don't want to make this lofty goal and tell the community we're going to do something, and then it's not even achievable.
Well, I think we have to do it, though, in some sense, because you pick the goals that the state's going to put on us in a couple years anyway, right?
I think these are real. And I'm hearing some conversation about going beyond, which I'm all for looking at. I just don't want to say we're going to do 90% in order just to get a nice.
No, I was just, my comment was just that I don't think we should have a lower expectation for some groups than for others. I think we need to make sure, and to be fair, we did kind of talk about campuses a little bit, and how that between the individual student and between the individual campus. So if campuses are easier, if it's easier to go by campus, that's how some of the data is broken up. I don't know.
I'm going to interrupt just a second. Do we need to have a board workshop for this, because we're kind of not following meeting? I think it's a great conversation. I think it's one that needs to be expanded, but we also have people here that we need to move on. So I propose we do a workshop on this.
I think when we talked about holding a date last Thursday.
For next Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Vessa, did you have again? Was that your comment?
No.
Oh, go ahead.
So going back to this is the LSG model, correct? So in the model, which we're going to implement, there are certain times that we check in. Is it 4 times during the year? Or I can't remember.
I don't think there's a designated amount, but we would definitely want for each goal, I think 3 to 4 times for sure.
Right. And any time, can we adjust this?
Yes.
So there will be, it won't just be to you, Mr. Math, who missed a part of the LSG. We do have that in the model where we will check in, and we will remember these goals because we're going to come back to them at least 4 times, right?
And I did want to also address, because I know Trustee Vessa a week ago was concerned, and I heard it echoed tonight, that we wanted to pay close attention to certain campuses and so forth. And I do agree that would be in the goal progress measures, that information would be brought forward to you, similar to what you had in the workshop a week ago that provided you that breakdown by student group and by campuses as well.
Jim.
Well, I think one of, as you said, that we could revisit it, but as I look to the constraints, so I did some homework, and I went and I looked up other board goals and constraints around the state as they have posted them. And one of the constraints that's most common is that you won't change your goals, throughout the year, that the goals that you've set, they can only be changed once. And that, I think that that's a reasonable constraint. So, because I don't think it's fair to our campuses for us to move the goal mid-year. So I think that whatever we come up with, and I'm fine if we want, I think this is probably going to be a longer discussion. I'm fine with setting up another workshop so that we can iron out, because this is super important. This is what we're working towards. We're setting, the blueprint for what we want to accomplish this next year. So taking extra time to do it is absolutely worthwhile. And so if we want to put another date on the calendar to go through this in detail so that we can have just, more of a conversational style workshop, I'm fine with adding that onto my calendar.
Okay. Ms. Filler.
I just wanted to echo Mr. Math's point about the importance of drilling down into those specific groups, because I think that we do, or it is easy to fall back into the aggregate look, and the groups that we really need to focus on get glossed over to some degree. And so I really...
That was my point. They need to be there in as goals in bold font, just like every other goal.
And I don't want to negate the work in other groups as well, but to make sure that we're highlighting it. And I don't know if that needs to be written specifically as a goal that the board wants to monitor, each ethnic group, and I don't know if we want to go to that kind of specificity, but making sure that we are monitoring that, because it's a common theme that we've all said over at least my tenure on the board and before, is we really want to see progress at all groups. So I just wanted to echo that.
So I just want clarity for staff. So I like this discussion, but I want to make sure, I think Mr. Matthews said you want to make sure that 3 to 4 goals, obviously that's important. So again, I want to echo what Mandy says. I think if Drew were here tonight, he'd say those are, and I think Mason, you said it, those are GPMs. We can still get to where you want to go, and those are goal progress measures. I also think back to Dr. Howard's last Thursday's presentation. He wasn't disappointed, but he was very confident that we'd get to the overarching goals, and then we could then come back to drill down. What I'm hearing again is a continuation. So I'm saying that if it takes an hour for discussion to continue, this is important discussion, I'd say get that so that then we can then come back next Thursday and start working on some of the GPMs, and I'll have staff working on some draft GPMs that'll assist us along the way. But, we're going to take 30 minutes and hear from public comments on items not on the agenda. This isn't the agenda, and if we're saying in Lone Star Governance, part of educating the community is Lone Star Governance is a different model, and it's focused on this. So this is the work. So I would say, heck, we've been here to 1:30 sometimes doing some other stuff in the morning. If that's 1:30 this morning, this is important stuff. This is the start of the school year. And again, I want to commend this board, because one of the things I keep hearing, previous boards, or last year's board, or before that, with the discipline removal rates. I bet, Ms. Vessa, when you saw what and where some of these districts that have board goals, I bet none of them were monitoring their discipline removal rates. So I commend last year's group and this year's group saying, hey, this is important enough, let's keep that. And that keeps us moving along. And that's stuff that right there, that's people, again, why don't they report that? Or why isn't that a board goal? Because they don't want that known. This is for us where we know we've got to get better. And that's highlighted last week, and it's highlighted this week. And so, again, moving to that, instead of having 22 goals, focus on the 3 to 4. And I'd say get those overarching goals, and then our next workshop next Thursday and get to the GPMs.
Well, I am in favor of continuing the conversation tonight, just because I remember the urgency of getting the campus improvement plans written and things like that. So if I don't know exactly what we need to do to wrap this up tonight and move it on to the next level, but to make sure that those campus improvement plans are able to get finalized and passed out to the campus principals in a timely manner to start implementing those.
Mr. Moses and Ms. Weir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think also let's remember that what Drew talked about is how by new House Bill 3, the first 3 subjects, reading, English language arts, math, and college career military readiness, are required. So we have to have So they kind of box us in with those 3 goals right there. And we've added discipline, carryover from the previous years, like was mentioned. So I think we're on a really good track. And I agree whenever, again, the goal progress measures are determined by administration, but I feel like we were all being very consistent in that when we see that, the expectation is that we're going to see this broken out by demographics, by campus level, so we can monitor that. And in the monitoring of that, if after a year of seeing how we progress in our goal, if we need to tweak it a little bit to either make it, hey, guess, in 1 year, all of a sudden, instead of being at 74 now in math, now we're at an 80. Okay, now we need to stretch that a little bit. Or, maybe we did that because these high campuses went up. Well, we're going to be seeing that on a regular basis and be having that conversation. And then when it comes time for budget conversations or for any other initiatives, it will say, hey, well, we need to put some resources tailored towards these campuses that need the most help and look at any programs that are needed there. Not necessarily additional resources, but like programs and people. So let's actually, I think that will really help if we go through the next 6 months, a year with this. We're going to start seeing that, and that'll be really helpful when it comes time for budget.
Ms. Weir and then Ms. Vessa.
Okay, I kind of, so can we go back just the discipline data? When Dr. Flores was mentioning it, I pulled out the board goal. And so I was just curious if the goal is that all the student groups, and we're going to keep that, go down to the overall district. It didn't actually look like your targets. Those weren't actually the targets for like 2019 and 2020 for all of the groups.
There's so many columns, it's confusing, but the target, the 2021 target is that second row, the final 3 columns. They should all be at 4, 2, and 1.
All right, so it was by 2021, and that's the one that we're still keeping that year.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding this document correctly, some ethnic groups will require a larger decrease year over year, whereas some will require a smaller decrease year over year to all end up at the 4%.
That's
so it's
correct.
not an aggregate at 4%, it's everyone at 4% or less, no matter what. That's what I'm understanding by this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Vessa?
Oh, sorry. That's just what I wanted to make sure. And then I don't know, because we didn't really talk about constraints other than, you just mentioned one, but one that I had was sort of kind of went back to some of what Corey was saying at the last meeting. If you are a D for 2 years or you're an F and then you've got to bring it up, we might want to have a constraint that you can't just come up for a year. Like if you've been a D 2 years and you come up to a C, we expect you to stay there. Or like, an F, once it gets to a D, don't wait a year or two and then fall back down maybe, and so that it kind of outlives everyone sitting up here, that we're going to push everybody to get better over time and not sort of get complacent again. No matter who's sitting up here.
Ms. Vessa, Dr. Flores, you have something?
No, I agree. A constraint, I think I said last week, I said no campus shall be a D or an F for more than 1 year. That's, in this district, not many districts can say that. I can tell you that because, there's the resources, the allocations, different things. In this district, there's no doubt. I look at the staff and the fact that we have 159 today, that is painful. But you know what? It's a reality check, and facts are better than dreams. We can keep dreaming, but we got a 59. And so with that, we're saying in a constraint, and y'all can hold me accountable to that, no doubt, we should not be a D or an F for more than 1 year, period. I even think a C, but my staff said don't go overboard. But the reality is I really do believe every campus can be like Kathy Cothran's campus at Berkman Elementary, where she said, hey, my teachers when I got here have big hearts, big hearts. But guess what? Now they've got big hearts and have high expectations. We get sometimes when we deal with students with poverty or of color, oftentimes we just think, let's sympathize. We don't need sympathy. We need to have performance goal measures, that do monitor that, and that's why I like this discussion and hold us accountable, hold me accountable.
It's simple, and it gets to the task at hand. I like that.
I'll make a quick comment here. So these old folders, we used to put these together. I say we, the district did. I didn't. I kept some of these from 2009, 010, 10, 11. And a lot of the goals are the same as what we had back then, which is increase the graduation rate for disadvantaged and minority students, diversity training plan, fully implement a diversity plan, provide adequate resources, develop a profile. So the reason I'm bringing these up is these are challenges we've faced all along. We continue to face them. The fact that the drawback to this is some of the scores, some of the scoring, this refers to the TAKS, T-A-K-S, the old TAKS program, which was the former, preceded the STAR. And that's a little bit difficult to compare 10 years ago to today. But a reality, I don't think that we should have any hesitation to set aggressive goals. And, if it makes it as simple as to say no failing schools, no Ds for 2 years in a row, whatever resources are required, we do that. And the rest of these things are, we fight for those. But, I think that we have so much to be grateful for here that we should be able to provide all of those and make the goals simple. No C, no Ds, no Fs. Every year it gets.
I think
more difficult.
C's are okay.
C's,
I mean, not many, but
I
my staff talked.
clarified.
My staff talked me out. I was agreeing with you, but then I thought, wait a minute.
C's aren't okay, but I'm not interested in putting it in the constraint.
Well,
Okay.
in the interest of moving forward perhaps to another conversation where we're focused on the goal progress piece, can I just reflect back a couple of things I heard? Because I think we're probably pretty close on these.
I'm not
haven't-
okay with numbers 1 and 2. I just don't think that people are going to understand what that. I didn't even understand what it meant, and I've been immersing myself into this. And to say, how can I publicly say that 24% of kids aren't going to have a year of growth, and I'm okay with that? I just can't do that. I cannot do that. So we have to restructure those goals in a way that, one, we can say it in something that people understand immediately what it means, and that everybody in this district can get behind as an ideal. Because I cannot get behind the concept that
What
by
number would you get behind?
2022,
What number would you get behind?
24% of our kids will have not, I
What
just
number
can't do that.
Would you get behind?
Well, I really, really like 1.5 years of growth. Let's average 1.5 years of growth. That is aggressive. But other districts have done it, and I think it's and they've made all these videos, and they've gotten really excited about it. And I think that's what's going to take for those campuses to that are struggling to get to the meets and exceeds level. They're going to need a year and a half of growth, and that is aggressive. It's an aggressive goal.
We can do that through drill and kill. We can. Or we can be more targeted, assistive with what we have. I said it last week. I said it at the workshop. We can get more copy machines and get more reams of paper and just do it. And the kids of color and students of poverty would be the ones getting that type of education. Every student should have access to the good stuff. And so what numbers would you said 1.5 years of growth? I don't know, Kathy, have you run that? Can you run those numbers or
Well,
just on the top of your head?
I'm afraid what I need to say is just it's going to earn me my name Buzzkill, but my nickname that measuring growth is an imprecise business. As is measuring student achievement. It's not like measuring how much your child grew in height or weight. There's always error of measurement. I would never encourage anyone to set a goal that was 100% because there's just too much variation in how quickly kids learn, how quickly they develop, changes in the scaling and the scoring of tests that we have no control over. I'm going to guess TEA set these targets because they thought they were reasonable. And for that reason, I feel like they're probably reasonable and we're beholden to them anyway. I could see setting the same target for all students. That's one of the things I wanted to reflect back to you, and putting that in the text of the goal, 76% for all student groups. A lot of our other goals had been written that way. We would be here all night if I started trying to explain how growth is measured, how achievement is measured, but it's imprecise. And so having a goal that's something like 1.5 years isn't something that I would even know how to describe or enumerate. So that's why I try to stick to the language that TEA uses, or the language of other assessments that we use, whatever.
But
whatever
it says
the
meet
vendor.
or exceed expected growth. I would assume that's like some type of, there's a measure by
Remember,
which.
it's a concept that is an umbrella over scale score points, and scale score points that vary from the growth of one grade level to the next. It is trying to simplify it and make it easier to understand.
I just
So
can't do that, though.
It's
I
not
can't
very
say
jazzy.
that 24% of our kids are not going to meet or exceed expected growth. Like, I can't sit here and agree to that. I just can't. So we need, and I mean, maybe one board member, everybody else can, but if it's possible to come up with something that we can get excited about and that most people could understand and remember, then I would prefer that.
Yeah,
I would
Mr.
vote for that.
Mr.
I
Math
won't
and-
vote for things that aren't that.
Yeah, so
Mr. Math.
I kind of agree. It's easier for me to, and 1.5 just seems like a high number. I mean, I'd like to. Is it historically able? Are we historically able to measure, like last school year was 1.2 and the year before was 1.18, or do we have that kind of data?
There are tests, for example, that are measuring, say, language development, where every single time point is tied to a norm for a child who's 2 years and 3 months old, and then the next time point it's for when they're 2 years and 6 months old, and there's a national norm you can refer to. Tests that are built that way, designed to measure development in that way, they can make claims of the child grew 9 months, the child grew 10 months, and so forth. So, Woodcock-Munoz is one that we give to our English language learners that's designed to do that and scaled that way. STAR is not designed to do that.
Yeah. So how about for high school kids? Are we able to measure reading improvement at the 11th grade level?
We don't currently have, Mendy will have to chime in here, we don't currently have an assessment that we give to high school students. Correct, Mendy?
STAR
To
is
measure-
just
That's correct, because at the point in which they enter high school, we're more focused on those college entrance exams, boosting the scores up in that area. And if they're a strong adult reader, they're going to do well on those.
Okay, thank you.
Moses.
It's also, I'll stop.
Thanks, sir. I want us to be careful that we're talking about potentially creating a goal because it's just going to sound jazzy. Now, no one up here is going to sit here and say that 24% of our students not meeting standards is acceptable. No one at this table, and I believe not a single employee in this district, think that is acceptable. I don't think a parent thinks that's acceptable. But to say that we're going to snap our fingers and make it happen in 3 years is we're setting ourselves up for failure. And I don't think that's what we want to do. I think now, one thing to remember is, as Amy's point, we are stewards here. We are here for a short period of time, and our goal is to move the ball down the field. The game's never won. It's never, ever fully achieved. There's always going to be work to do. If we had come back with an A and no campuses, an F or a D, there would still be work to do in Roanoke ISD. That never changes. It's just how can we get there in the most logically expedient way that lifts up the most kids. And to do anything else than to try and do that is just a political move and to make themselves look good. And I don't think that's what we're here to do. So the question is still out there is then, what is a number that people can get behind? What is realistic? And can we get behind the concept of these three goals? Knowing that we're going to need to see good progress measures, that we're going to need to get them on 3-4 times a year, and that we're going to be able to monitor them and then adjust them as necessary to ensure that every campus is being successful, every child is being successful, and every demographic across the district is being successful. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And to say we can do it in a year is just not being honest.
Can I maybe propose a compromise? Sort of just looking at these goals to 2022, the state was really trying to go up 10 percentage points. We were already, 7 up from where their starting is. So instead of going to where they're saying, maybe we can go 10 percentage points from where we are now. Since that's really what the state, if you look at it a different way, they're asking us to go up 10 percentage points. If we were on target, right now we would be at 66, and they would try to get us up. So that would put us to 83% for reading, and then 84 for math.
Well, I think that would be a little bit easier to remember. We're going up 10 percentage points. And to your points, it's not a political tool that I'm trying to use to score points. It's a way for people to get around an idea and get behind it. And if you make it too complicated, then they can't get behind it. We want people to remember it. We want our board to remember it. And so,
but more importantly, we want our students to achieve it. I don't need buy-in. I need our students to achieve. I think that's the most important thing that we're kind of forgetting right now.
It is, and I do think we do want our students to achieve, and so, but I don't think we want to set our goals so low that we're not pushing them. So we need to. I think 10% would be a good compromise to say we're going to do 10% of where we are now. We'll be that much ahead of our where the state is expecting us to be, and then in a couple of years, we can go again and keep going.
Just a quick point of clarification. Okay, so on this, again, I'm just making it says state target 2022, 23, 23 through 26, 27. Does that mean in that? So basically, are they saying by 2027 they should be at this goal, or they should be there in 22, 23?
That'll be the target throughout that period.
Yeah.
Just like we have a non-moving target right now through 2022.
So they're giving. So yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So they're saying you're going to be there by 22, 23, or you're going to be there by 26, 27.
Starting in 2023, spring 2023, that's the standard. Then the standard doesn't move for a while, but it's this constant. It's constantly raising the bar, if you will.
I know we kind of talked about
or periodically
in either or. So can we do something where it's you see the 10% or along some of those lines that Amy's talking about, or I know. Let me just give me a minute to think, and I'll.
Well, because the Asian number is already above even that 10%, so we wouldn't want them to drop.
So something along, that's what I'm trying to just think
right.
of.
So like the 10%, but if you're already up there, we don't want to see you come down. Something like that.
Okay. So this is a little.
So in an effort to move this along and give staff clear direction, what I'd like to see is for each of the 4 goals to have 2 or 3 potential measures that we could review. And we're not the only school district out there in the state of Texas, so I would look at what other school districts have and maybe come up with 2 or 3 options for each of 4 goals, and then we could center our discussion around those. Does that sound fair?
Are you referring to the goal progress measures or the way we measure growth as a district?
So the way we measure growth. So like, for instance, or maybe I said that wrong. Let me give an example. So just focusing on goal number 1, it's a reading goal. I'd like to see 2 or 3 or 4 choices for a reading goal. One might be this one that we have on the board. One might be similar to what Trustee Vessa discussed. And I'm sure if we surf the net, we could probably find maybe one other. And just to reach some sort of agreement as to what we think is the best measure for reading.
You're
what we think is
recommending
the best
bring
measure
3
for
options
math?
back to us that we
Yes.
choose one of those, not to have 3 sub-bullets.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know, does that sound reasonable?
And I think this comes back to we tell them what, they tell us how. So this is, we tell them what we want them to do. Then administration comes back and tells us this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to measure what we says we're going to do.
Yeah, so
Is
right
that what
now
you're
it
thinking?
seems like 4 general goal categories is good.
Yeah.
Now we need to just figure out what should be in each of those 4 boxes. And that's the task for administration.
That sounds more like the goal progress measures, though, to me, than because they'll have to do that. So, because we only do start at the end of the year, so you'll have other ways that they're going to be measuring during the year that they'll have to bring to us at our updates.
With other assessments. So, and I did also want to clarify what I was hearing, and this may be incorrect, is that as written, goal 3 and 4 look to be about what the trustees are interested in. So I think we're narrowed down to those first 2 goals that we want to refine a little bit more.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah.
And so
That's
then,
fair.
are you asking for multiple different versions of the reading goal, for example, different percentages amounts, different wording?
So we could argue about argue's the wrong word. We could discuss what the percentage should be afterwards, but I'm looking at what's really the optimal measure. So, we had some discussion. Should it be the percentage of students who meet or exceed expected growth on STAR, or is there another choice that we could look at?
Did you choose? I mean, I guess I'm curious then. You chose this because it's where we have to get from the state, right? And it's
that
the best measure of reading. I mean, is it the best measure of reading? I mean, that's a handy.
Well, and I think also we chose it because we heard, and just might have been our take on last week's meeting, focus on growth. And so when we honed in on what could get us closest to that focus on growth, that's what sent us to this direction.
So I heard at least 3 options already for the first goal. One is similar to what you've already got. One is 10% growth, and one is 1.5 or 1.2, whatever that number is.
Mr. Moses.
Yeah, I just really do like us looking at the growth because, again, it's not all about a test score. It's not all about a rating because there's a number of factors to go in. But if we're serious about raising up those campuses, if you look at the ones that were lower performing, where they got hit the hardest was on growth. Student achievement, while it may not have been where we all would love it to be, that wasn't what made them be maybe a grade lower than we thought they should be. It was it was just not being as achievable as we had hoped on domains 2 and 3. And both those tie back to growth. And so if we can focus in on that, then I think that lifts those schools up fairly quickly.
So this is my vision. I'm not constrained in boxes. I go outside the box. We talked about you're saying, well, is this attainable? Like, can we do this? Let's change the paradigm. Right now, we can only retest for 5th and 8th grade. I don't like it. I think we should be able to retest every grade. I think we go back to the legislature as they're reviewing this STAR test, and we say, let us retest for every kid who does not get to approaches, and let us use that. Let us use the extra 30 days we have during instructional days during the summer. Let us, because what we see is in 5th and 8th grade, look at our passage rates. They're so much higher. We're pushing those kids. We're getting more, we're able to motivate the kids. We're able to motivate the parents, the teachers, because they get other opportunities. It's not just one day. They have 3 days. They have 3 chances. And we keep pushing them and keep pushing them. I say we go for the big target and we go back to the legislature and we say we want to change this program. We want to have our kids be able to retest in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade.
I think that's a great idea. Of course, there's not going to be legislation next year.
Yeah, we got to get our goal this month. So
let's try to
focus
wrap this
on
up
our
here.
goals.
Let's get some ideas. Do you have? We have some consensus here about 3 options for each one of these? Bring it back 1.5 years?
Yeah,
1,
that was just
2%?
a suggestion. I just didn't want to be locked into this way of measuring it. I wanted to see if there might be an alternate way of measuring reading progress.
And I like Mason's suggestion really of building in, not dropping.
Right.
If you're already above, to have that be part of our goal, just district wide, that no one loses ground.
Okay.
So real quick, is number 1 the one that is now mandated by the state? Is it written the same way?
No, ma'am. It's just that we have to have a goal around reading.
Just have to have a goal around. Does it include growth? The goal, the state's goal.
That I mean,
I
those
don't
are,
believe
you
it
know,
is.
achievement, growth are 2 very specific things of
Mhm.
measurement, and so I'll have to go double check that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because I think what I heard is all students, maybe put all students, so we're doing, or all student groups. Is that, one of you maybe said that a moment ago. And then maybe looking at 10% or 1 point, whatever's truly measurable, and then not dropping.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think those were the main things that I heard coming from up here.
I can support 10%.
Oh, 10%.
10 percentage points.
10% improvement from the
where we are
baseline growth over the period. And I think we have some tools in our toolbox that we didn't have before. So I've talked about, outside the box, but there are some in the box that we just got a new box. And that's, we have 30 additional half days of instruction during the summer that we didn't have before. We are opening up an additional pot of money to incentivize our most experienced and effective teachers to teach at our highest need schools, and we have to draft grant proposals to TEA because it's in the form of like kind of a pot of money that you have to apply for. So we have to put together a proposal for that. But I think that we can move the bar higher because we have more tools in our toolbox, and I will fight to get even more tools in our toolbox because I think that we need to aim to lift up as many kids as we possibly can. I want to set high targets.
So I don't know if 10% is the right number, but the suggestion that I had made earlier was to have the goal be overall, and I'll use 10%, but for those campuses designated D or F, 15%. I think every goal needs to have an aggregate and a targeted goal.
Just real quick, again, and I think I can get behind 10%, but also what I want to hear from staff is if that's realistic. Because I just look at our Hispanic population. If they go from, what are they right now? They go up 8 points, they still might meet the state goal, or even beat the state goal, but not meet that 10%. Then it's like, hey, you did everything we asked you to do as far as beating the state and doing all this, but that's still not good enough. So, but if that wasn't realistic, if we come back and say this is realistic, this is achievable, by doing X, Y, and Z, then
without data,
yeah.
I don't know if 10% is realistic or not.
I just want to hear
X
a little
percent
bit more
and Y
information
percent.
on
How
if
about
it's
that?
achievable. I like the idea of 10%, and I see where you're getting at, and think it makes complete sense.
Yeah, I just don't
sure
want to
it's-
undervalue what our students can do by
No, I
saying that
agree.
currently they're in a group that hasn't done well, and so we're not going to expect as much from them. I want to be very careful about that we have that as our expectation from the board to the teacher, that we expect that all of these kids can meet these standards, that they just can. And that's important.
It's the removing of that soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, I mean, because I know
Absolutely.
they can. I mean, I know they can do it, and I know our teachers can do it.
I was actually suggesting a more aggressive percentage for the lower performing schools because they're starting out from a lower starting point.
Just a reminder, though, if we're really talking about that, we need to be prepared for maybe a plan that is not looking like what we've been. And I'm not saying, but it's
No, you're right. It may be something totally different.
It may be
And
very a huge shift from what. And again,
That-
back to
I
her
think
point,
that's
addressing
absolutely
but that may be more drill and kill. That may mean
Yeah.
less teacher autonomy. That may mean more top down as far as from a curriculum standpoint, and this board has to be ready for that potential coming forward.
Yeah, I mean, that hopefully will come from staff.
Yeah,
all our
but
options.
Let's just not be shocked if that's what comes.
Okay.
The only other
Thanks.
comment that I have is just on Ms. Weir's point on the will not drop below. I'm the last person to say that I want there any kind of regression or anything like that, but I also understand that we're working with a very moving target. It's not like you get $100 in the bank and you're not going to ever go below that $100 balance. And so it almost feels like that's a constraint that you're putting on, that once they get there, they won't drop below. I don't want to think that by me saying this that I'm going to be satisfied if some group or subgroup were to drop below it, but using that terminology of and will not drop below blah, 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 blah. Maybe if we wanted to set that as a constraint for us as a board, or is it a superintendent's constraint that he's willing to accept with that? It's the only caveat to that. I like everything else that we've developed tonight, but that does not drop below kind of.
Yeah, that does sound like a constraint. You're right. So maybe it does need to come out of the goal and be a part of the constraints that we don't.
Oh, I thought it was a constraint.
Well, I think what Mason was saying is, well, I guess what I heard and what I thought I was repeating, and maybe I was wrong, but is that we wouldn't want to set a goal of, say, 83% when our Asian population is already at 87. So we wouldn't want them to drop down to 83 and still be meeting goal, but then they had really lost 4 percentage
I think,
points.
yeah,
and that's
you're right there, but I
describing
think
a
what Amber was
constraint.
getting at was more the campus rating constraint, if I was hearing you right.
Nope.
No,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Along with
yeah.
it.
Okay, we're good.
But I think it could go either place, right? If it's a constraint and not a goal, it's still hopefully going to have that same effect
Yeah.
where.
I like, so what I like about that will not drop below is it shows the confidence we have in our educators and our teachers that are in the classrooms, because I know that whatever we work up here, right up here, that our teachers are going to be in those classrooms working their butt off every day for each one of those kiddos. And so if we have the administrative team in there to support that, then to say, okay, this is what we need to target for. This is I go back to one of our learning community presentations this past school year that said, we went back and looked at the data and we realized it was only 7 kids that we really needed to target in this subgroup to hit some goal. And, so things like that I think that's going to be the direction that these goals are going to give to administration to say, we really need to focus on this subgroup and these kiddos.
Okay. One more thing.
I just wanted to say one thing. As I was reflecting upon what we got excited about this year, we were all excited about Natalie Nichols' proposal to push those kids into accelerated math, and to, even if they really weren't testing as ready, but to give them supports throughout the year, to provide them supports in the summer. Like, that was exciting. Every one of us was like, that is awesome. And I think it's that kind of like a visionary and just pushing the envelope that people get behind. When you say we're going to grow the number of kids who are getting a year of growth, which is what they should be getting, by 3%, that's just not visionary. It's not. But if we say 10% more kids are going to get a year or more of growth, that at least sounds a little better. I mean, I'm not saying that is like super visionary, but it sounds better than 3%. That's just, I can't do that. So I'm just saying that when we as a board got excited about something, it was about something that pushed us really hard. It pushed the whole community to dream bigger and to be bigger than they'd ever had been before. And that's something that everybody can get excited about. And so let's not dream small and so that we achieve small. Let's dream big and see what happens.
Okay. So you have a general idea what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Say yes so we can.
Say yes. Clear. You can go back and listen to it
I
again if
think
you'd
we
like.
had just one more slide on constraints, but if you'd like to save additional conversation for the workshop, that's fine. But this was the one that the team brought as a proposed constraint. And then that's our last slide.
I like that one.
I think you do that, all this other is going to happen anyway, high performance. I mean, so that right there. So bring it on.
Okay. Okay, is that it for now? All right.
So the last part of Lone Star governance is the board has to set their own constraints. So we've listed a constraint for the superintendent here, but we also have to go back. Now this, I don't think the board constraints necessarily have to be hammered out tonight, and I don't think that that has any impact on our campus improvement plans and moving forward on the accountability and goal progress calendar, or too much terminology. You know what I'm talking about. But we do need to address some board constraints that we are willing to accept as a board for that last element of Lone Star governance. So.
And I know there's a lot of districts that have it out there, and some of them seem pretty standard of what's suggested from TEA for board constraints. I think probably if we're meeting next Thursday, if that's kind of where we're going, that we can probably hammer out pretty quick next Thursday.
Perhaps we could all submit something to Patty over the week, and then she could pass that back out, and we could talk about it,
look at it
briefly
next Thursday.
before our meeting next week.
Okay. Shall we take a quick break, or you want to do the financials real quick? You want to do the...
Yeah, I think that Kenneth's ready to go. He's got 2 slides. It's down from 4, so he's ready.
Try to do it with no slides since you got it on your computer. So good evening, President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, and members of the board. I'll give you an update on the May results. The financials are in the alphabetical order that I'll speak to, starting with the general fund, which is letter A. So total revenue for the month of May for the general fund was $5.7 million. Expenses for the month were $39.5 million. On a year-to-date basis through May, and our fiscal year ends in June, so this is through 11 months of actual results. We had total revenue of $429.6 million, which is $600,000 more than budget. Expenses were $381.2 million, which was $13.9 million better than budget. As we discussed many times, the main reason for that favorable variance on the expense side is that we budget a full staff, and then through unfilled positions and attrition, we have a built-in pad in our budget, and that's why we've come in better we're trending better on the expense side. Letter B of the financials is food service. For the month of May, we had $1.7 million of revenue, $1.9 million of expense. Year to date, we've got revenue of $19.7 million, which is $200,000 better than our budget. Expenses were $15.2 million, which are $700,000 better than budget for our food service. Letter C gives the debt service financials. So the only thing we had happen in the month of May was $517,000 of revenue. Our fund balance at the end of May was right at $105 million. Just a little heads up, we made our debt payment, which we make semi-annual debt payments, one on February 1st, the other on August 1st. We made our August 1st payment of $83.7 million earlier this month. And then letter D reflects the bonds. And so our bond revenue, which is mainly interest income, was $423,000. Had expenses, bond expenses of $4.1 million. On a year-to-date, we've had $1.6 million of revenue and $22.8 million worth of bond-related expenses. And our total bond fund balance for the 2008, 2014, and 2018 fund balance, it was $234 million at the end of May. So that's the update for May. We're in as a couple other notes, we're in the process of closing our books for the 18-19 fiscal year, which ended on June 30, and starting next month, the beginning of the month, we'll have our outside auditing firm, Maxwell Ritter, will be here to start doing our annual audit, which is our CAF, or the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And next month at the September board meeting, I'll be presenting to you the first report for the 17-18 school year. FIRST is the acronym for the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, but we did very well on that report, so I'll share that with you next month. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Onyx. Board members, any questions on that? That's good. That's kind of more than 4 pages, but it's all right. I think 4 documents, but it's all right. It's all good. I guess it is 4 pages. All different 4 different documents. Anyway, any questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Take a quick break. All right.
I have 9:57. Could we get started at 10:05?
That's good.
Thank you.
All right, we'll reconvene at 1:06. How about that, Mr. Math? We got it 1 minute late. I mean, 10:07. Yeah, 10:07. One of them. That's all right. We got it close. It was 10:06 when I saw it, and then I looked up and it was 1 second later. So, all right. With that, we'll go to agenda item H, discussion of student handbook. Dr. Flores.
I'm sorry, Dr. Presley.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. President Chadwell, members of the board. You were sent the student handbook, which is virtually the same as it was last year. As a reminder, our student handbook is built on the TASB model, so there are no major changes. If you have questions, I can answer them or refer to staff to answer anything, but it's relatively the same handbook as last year.
So one thing that Mason and I were talking about in terms of our Policy, Innovation, and Budget Committee that might relate to the student handbook is just clarifying like how we will handle student interviews. And so I think we're going to be expecting to talk about that in the coming months in the PIB committee, just so that parents can have an understanding of what is the standard in our district for how we interact with students, and I think that will give guidance to our administration as well.
I think that's a great idea, topic for the PIB committee. If you want to put it on the agenda, and we can get some more clarity with that and over-communicate that so all the parents know what the expectations are and what the procedures are, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's what, just get the overview first, and then we can see what, if anything, from there. 'Cause I know there's been really, even from staff, some need for clarity from the board of what we expect, and so hopefully that we can begin that conversation.
Sure, I think it'd be a great discussion.
Okay. This is just a discussion. We don't take action on it. Right. Okay. Go to agenda items I, consideration for consent. And let's see, I had a question, I think, from Mr. Worcester here. We got an email from a HVAC, and I didn't know if you had a chance to review it. I thought you might reply. I don't mean to, just thought, I'm sure you have an answer for that, but if you would explain. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. President Chadwell, Dr. Flores, and others, we have been in receipt of an email from a vendor. That vendor represents a HVAC particular specific company. We have invited him to come and meet with us, and that particular email was a bit out of school simply because his product is in the specifications. He has not conferred with us at all, and so we are going to bring that to his attention so that he is listed in projects.
Okay. Just from what I read about it, I thought you guys are aware of it, and so I'll need to know if you want to give us an update in an email or board report or through Dr. Flores at some time, that's fine. All right, thank you. So this is by consent. If there's any questions on it, otherwise we can make a motion and adopt all of these. Ms. Speller.
So my only question is, with this many items on consent, each one is listed with their own like recommended action, like a motion and things like that. Is there one that...
You just say a move from I through...
Mr. President, yeah.
Okay. I just was looking for procedural...
Yeah. Watch Mr. Moses. Okay.
Mr. President, I move that we approve items I-1 through I-16 by consent.
Second.
We have a motion for action items for consideration by consent, I-1 through 16 by consent. I had my question about that one. I was related in there. Anyway, any other questions? Further discussions?
Thank you for the clarification.
With clarifications? Okay. Does that understand? You understand? Okay. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Great. All right, we'll go to agenda item J, action items, appoint delegate and alternate for the 2019 TASB Delegate Assembly. And we have a couple of volunteers, right?
So, Mr. Chadwell, I've served as the delegate for the prior year, and I believe that the tradition is that new trustees serve in those positions, and I move that Trustee Vessa be named the delegate, and that if she's willing, Trustee Feller be named alternate to the TASB 2018 Delegate Assembly, which the alternate won't matter because Trustee Vessa will not miss that meeting.
So I don't have a problem with that recommendation, except that the district recommendation on here was that the delegate and the alternate be from among the more experienced board members. Due to the complexity of various education issues, the decision made by the assembly will set the course for TASB for the coming year.
That's a misprint.
And I think also, as Mr. Nath pointed out, he served, I've served, I believe probably Nikki and Chad have served. So it's just a wonderful experience that we want to make sure we share with people.
I'm going to quickly second his motion.
Second, third.
I will say this one's a little bit unique, I guess, because of the House Bill 3 that passed. There's going to be a focus on, I know Ms. Vess has worked hard and just being up to speed on that. I mean, everybody has, but there's really, it's more attending, and you can be there. It's like one afternoon, just a whole slew of a lot of discussions. So it's a fast-going, fast-moving, that there's
You love it.
Ross Ramsey is speaking. I mean, how could you not love that?
Yeah. Okay.
My only request would be if Ms. Vessa would mind typing something up for us.
Well, that'd
I
be
would
great.
be happy to get
that'd be a
notes.
great idea, and you will be there in the room as well as an alternate.
Oh, no, I'm just the alternate.
Oh, you're in the back.
Well, you can be there. You can be there.
In case she needs
Yeah.
to go somewhere else.
All right, we have a
Can
motion.
can I remove my second?
We have a motion and a second. Okay, we have a motion and a
Right.
second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 7-0. All right,
Why
thank
did
you.
I vote for that? No.
Okay, endorse TASB Board of Directors candidates. We have a couple names in here, and we can accept those, or we can add our own. But I know a couple of those, and I think they're great candidates. So unless there's any objection, we can nominate those. Ms. Feller.
So I always have a problem voting for somebody that I don't know anything about, and I don't know them personally.
You can abstain, or you can, there was,
Do we have any reason as to why we would endorse these candidates over someone else?
I think these are the
or-
only ones that put their names in. So this is for Region 13, which is, there's 50-something districts in the central Austin area, down to San Marcos, up to like Florence, out east to Manor, Elgin, west, all the way to Fredericksburg. And so these are the three representatives. Two of them are incumbents. And then, so anyway, I think they're the
Well,
only
it
ones.
actually looks like we're only supposed to be nominating someone from position B where there's two people.
Right.
Is it right? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
B.
and so, I mean, does anybody know?
I
Oh,
prefer.
okay, you're right. I know what it was. It was, the incumbent.
I thought Mary Jane's
Mary Jane's incumbent. And that's the one that's,
resume and looked really stellar.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So I move that the board nominate Mary Jane Hetrick from Dripping Springs ISD to the TASB Board of Directors in Region 13, Position B.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second for, I think she's a doctor, right? Mary Jane Hetrick. So all those, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Abstaining? Okay. 6-4 and one abstention. All right, we'll go to agenda item J3, discussion possible action on 2019-2020 goals. Are we
I think our action is another meeting
Okay.
next week.
And we will have another meeting and a discussion workshop on that. Is that Okay.
Can I get a clarification on that? I thought that we already have another obligation on Thursday, the 22nd.
You're right, it's 2 weeks.
Okay,
The
thank you.
29th is what we had talked about.
Thank you.
We have another meeting? So we have a
Okay.
meeting on the 20th.
I think we
Start
have
using my new calendar.
3 in a row. Okay, but we're not doing anything on this right now, right? Okay. All right, we'll go to agenda item J4. Board will consider and take appropriate action regarding election of Board of Trustee officers. Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you putting this on the agenda. I know really a lot of this stemmed from a conversation I felt like the board needed to have with the new day of Lone Star governance. We have all made a commitment to this. I know there are some of us who were very hesitant in the past and perhaps have even looked at ways to make this not happen, but I'm glad the board came together to make this happen because it's a critical thing. And so I just want to say a few things before, and I'm not expecting anybody to, unless the will of the board to make action, but I am glad we had the conversation. But there are a few things I feel like do need to be said. And as you know, we as a board have spoken several times about the direction of the board, certain things we'd like to see, and have shared our opinions with you about how they might be achieved. We've all had great hope. Hope is good. We should all have hope. But at some point, action and leadership are required. The role of board president serves as a critical link between the board and administration to help clarify any uncertainty on staff's part regarding board action, to lead the crafting of our agenda around the board's priorities, the board's agenda and the board's priorities, to be the primary representative to the community on behalf of the board, and to serve as a counselor and mentor to other trustees. Perhaps the most important, though, is to act as a facilitator at our meetings, to engage other members and allow them to weigh in first, then share their opinion while summarizing the board's conversation along the way. It is not to try and push the board to their own personal opinion from the outset of the conversation or to steer the board in their own desired direction. We all need to make sure that all board members are mentored. But it especially is the role of the president to lead that and to bring others along. It's the only way to have a sustainable board here in Round Rock. As I have talked many times, turnover in Round Rock ISD board is very high. The average tenure since 2000 is less than 4 years. More about 67%, 70% of trustees serve one term or less. And I think it's because we have not been focusing on board outcomes, which we need to be. We each, and especially board president, should work as much as we can to build consensus. We're a large district, so it's unreasonable to expect every vote to be 7-0, nor should it be. There are split votes. It's going to happen. However, data shows that when we work towards consensus and try to have 7-0 votes, student outcomes increase. That is a fact, and there's data to back that up. To achieve the goals that we have begun crafting last week and tonight, I believe we need to make sure we have a board president and we set the expectation of the board president. That when they go to set the agenda, they ask themselves, does this item move us closer to our goal or farther away? Is it aligned with the vision we have set, or is it aligned with someone's personal agenda? This is not being rude or discounting another trustee. It's merely being more strategic in our agenda to ensure it is focused on student outcomes and is of a reasonable length. We must remember that governance is our role. It is not to be delegates. We have to learn this in our team of 8. We've gone through and we have each said where we think the board falls. We need to focus on being trustees. We cannot solve every community member's problem. It's just not realistic. And the Education Code clearly states that the board members of the body corporate have the exclusive power and duty to govern and oversee the management of the public schools of the district. We do not have authority as individuals. Our only authority is when we govern as a team. And if we are to oversee management, we cannot then take actions that try to become management. We need to stay focused in our lane. I close with some stats that I hope will be completely different by the time we get done with this year. Since January, going back to January, all the way through June, this is not including any grievances or hearings, we have had nearly 61 hours of meeting time. In those 61 hours, we have spent approximately 3 to 4 hours on student outcome goals that are not mandatory by the state of Texas. We don't get credit for talking about the budget. We don't get credit for reviewing our taper report, which we have to do. This is us actually being proactive about student outcomes, 3 to 4 hours. That's less than 5% of our time. We have not been putting the first things first. I'm excited about where we're going, but why have we not been doing this forever? We've been asking about it, and it hasn't happened. The president sets the agenda. That is one of their main duties. We cannot expect student outcomes to improve if we're not talking about student outcomes. We cannot expect things to change if we're not willing to make changes ourselves. Remember, student outcomes don't change until adult behavior changes. If you think this current direction is acceptable, 5% of our meetings on student outcomes, 5-hour meetings, which we've averaged ending at about 11 p.m. on our meetings when we're going to push it again tonight, which I know we all have a part in. I'm not solely blaming this on any one member. We all talk. We all need to be more focused. But there's really not been a solid direction, and we're not talking about the goals. The fact that we couldn't even say what our goals are because we haven't been talking about them, that's on us. That's on the agenda makers. I just hope that moving forward, if we see opportunities to turn this around, we take them. The community is watching. Our staff is watching. Our teachers are watching. Our students might be up watching. We have to do better. If we're going to sit here and demand excellence, which we should, of our staff and of our students, we cannot then in turn not demand excellence of ourselves. We cannot not demand excellence of our leaders. And so with that, I again thank you, Mr. Chadwell, for letting us have this conversation. I hope now, I think we had a good conversation earlier about where we're going with our goals. The hope never dies, but I think you've heard from many of us that we need to see a commitment to what we have started.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moses. Ms. Gonzalez, Chevy Light?
Yes.
And Ms. Vessa. Okay.
President Chadwell and fellow trustees, as a trustee, we must focus on student outcomes. I can say with confidence we each ran with the intent to make a difference in students' lives and create opportunities for them to be prepared and succeed in life. As Mason just said, student outcomes don't change until adult behavior changes. I agree with that sentiment. However, I don't know what it looks like in the last year. Since January, we as a board have only spent 5% of our time discussing student outcomes. Do you think 5% focus will have a significant impact on student outcomes and change lives? It won't. Absolutely not. This is unacceptable. Our students deserve better. Our students deserve a board concerned about creating a future for them. Instead, this board is more focused on management, which exceeds our required legislative duties as a Texas school board. We are supposed to govern. In closing, I just encourage you to ask yourself why anyone would want to be in a non-paid leadership role. Is it because they want to govern and see the district succeed, or is it their own agenda? Sometimes a leadership change is needed when focused goals like Lone Star governance come into your district. Trustee Mason Moses has shown true leadership and passion for Lone Star governance. He's wanted to do it since last year. He has consistently tried to get this board focused on student outcomes, and that is why I would like to now nominate Mason Moses for board president. Mr. President, I move this board nominate Mason Moses for president.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Math, did you have a discussion item?
Yes. I don't have a prepared statement, but I did want to make the point that we need adult behavior changes, and everyone on this dais is an adult. Last time I checked. We're not a team of 1 + 7. We're a team of 8. Maybe Trustee Chadwell hasn't called you up, but I have his phone number. He's never turned down one of my calls. Got his email address. You know, last I checked, the phone rings both ways. So I challenge everyone on this dais to act like adults, change their behavior, so that we can function effectively as a team of 8.
Thank you, Mr. Math. Did you have a lot on, Ms. Feller?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to address why I seconded that vote. And on multiple occasions in the last 6 months, individual isolated events, so definitely not a open meetings violation or anything like that, but 5 of the 6 individuals that are sitting up here have expressed concern about the direction and the leadership from the board. And I think it's important that we address that. And I think that this is what this does. And not taking anything away from your service that you've given over the last 10 years, President Chadwell, but we are embarking on a new phase for Round Rock ISD, I feel like. And I feel like we need someone that it's fully committed to that direction. And so that's why I support that.
Fair enough. Okay. I respect the process and the comments made here, and we all have lots to learn, lots to improve on, and I'm certainly willing to learn and know that I have places that I can improve. So with that, thank you for your comments. With that, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Motion fails. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go to agenda item K, public communication. We have none, is that right? No more further public comments? Go to agenda item L, announcement, Facilities and Finance Committee. Ms. Weir.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Terry and his team. We had a great meeting. Steve Math and I, we missed you, Amber. But there's a lot of good work, and it was 2 hours. And if you didn't go back and watch it, Terry has printed out for everybody all the different improvements that are going on. Westwood, McNeil, CD Folks, the aquatics facility. We did one more. Elementary 35, which looks very exciting. I know at some point this board is going to have to start having some discussions regarding Elementary 35. I did kind of want to go back. I didn't want to get us out of the consent agenda, but I did, for anybody that's still watching, I know that, especially for McNeil, Phase 2, we have a new contractor coming on that we just approved. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that. We're excited at the McNeil community to keep going.
Thank you, Trustee Weir. The purchasing department has been busy, as well as those of the construction staff have been active in supporting the purchasing department, because there is a process, and Mr. Spiegel has made a presentation in regard to how to select builders. And so we've been in the phase of selecting builders, and that is what we call construction management at risk, as CMR. And that is governed statutorily, and so I won't dwell on that. But going through that with precision, the reality is that many builders pursued all of our projects, not just McNeil High School, Westwood High School, CD Folks, and Elementary 35. And we are about to go into a RFQ, a request for qualifications for the aquatic center, or aquatic practice pool. And so that hopefully will be on agenda next board meeting. So through that, we learn from the builders that the fees are extraordinarily competitive in all areas. Their qualifications are extraordinarily good, very solid, very good builders who are pursuing. And they become numerically rated. And so those builders of similar quality make it to interviews. We interview, and we choose the builder who has the best score. And so the builder that you saw on your consent agendas tonight are the builders who have made it to the top. And so we congratulate them. One builder was here tonight in attendance, and we move forward, and we're going into technical drawings, and we're going into pricing for these projects now.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited. I think the facilities committee, we haven't really started talking about the boundaries yet. We're hoping to do that very soon, and then we'll still be doing updates on the bonds to bring to you. And I don't know if anybody else had any questions. If you saw anybody, it was exciting. You didn't watch it. They were very cool. They were very cool presentations and a lot of excitement. Actually, it was good.
You're talking about you're talking about the meeting you had?
Yeah, when the facilities committee that we had all 5 of the architects come in and present, and there's a lot of neat stuff that's coming our way. It's going to be really good.
I attended the last half of that meeting and grateful that it's broadcast and the material that was presented, and very exciting to see so much activity going forward.
Yeah, if anybody out there that's watching didn't go back and watch, you should go back and watch because there's a lot of good stuff coming up.
Okay, very good. We'll go to agenda item L2, Policy Innovation Budget Committee Report. Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're very excited about the work we're doing in the Policy Committee. As you know, we've been working on AE Local, which ties very closely to Lone Star governance for some time, and so we're hoping to bring that forward. We're going to talk about it at our next meeting on the 27th. So we're going to keep working on that as we go through that. If you have any thoughts, as you went through your own Lone Star governance training, looking at that policy, please do share. We want the feedback, the input, so we can make sure what we bring forward is as close as it can be aligned with the vision of this board and what we need to do as far as the implementation of the goals that we are working on. I think also another exciting one is tied to Lone Star governance is going to be around our own board self-evaluations. We really, besides Team 8, hadn't had one. We didn't really had one since I've been on the board. So we're going to follow the LSG model of having those quarterly, having do formatives and then summative. That's the plan around that policy. We'll flesh out any other details we will, but that's the goal moving forward. And I know, as Trustee Vessa mentioned tonight, we're going to look at the agenda to see if we can also talk about related to make sure we're just have better understanding of the process when we're talking to students. And there will also be on that, we're going to start looking at the most recent TASB policy update for new members. We get those periodically, usually after a session, and they're very, very in-depth. So we'll be looking at that. And most of those are legal policy changes, and any of the local ones are typically ones that trickle down from the legal policy changes. But we'll be going through those and seeing, make sure they're in line with what we're trying to accomplish.
Ms. Vessa.
So also some other things that I talked to Mason about looking at was, I'm very excited about the legislative opportunities we have to, add additional instructional days. We have an opportunity to have 30 additional instructional days for our students that need extra help during the summer. So looking at how we can implement that this year. Also, I talked before about, incentivizing our best teachers to work at our most needy campuses and how we can structure a proposal for that to submit to TEA so that we can tap into those resources to give additional help to those campuses. And then lastly, a little different, we had talked about as we go into our football and athletic season, like student searches in terms of use of different devices like breathalyzers and different things, so that we can have consistent direction to our administration there as to how we want to ensure safety at those events.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Vessa. All right, let's go to agenda item J3. Announcements, updates, requests for future agenda items. We do have a meeting next week, right? And that's grievances, and then we have another one the following. Is that right, the 29th? And that's the workshop, is that right? Is that right? Okay. We don't have a time on that. At least I don't have it on here, but I'm guessing, 5:30 or 6 or so.
Have we set a date for the workshop on the task force presentation?
Not yet. They sent out two options, and I think she's waiting to hear back from what's the most, unless you all have a preference now, we can set it.
Well, I think it's Mr. Math is the one, since they were both on Mondays.
Yeah. I think I could make either one of those Mondays. If the choice is open, the second Monday that was proposed was a little bit better. I hate to.
I think it was the 9th and the 16th, right?
The 16th, I think, is what I had.
Yeah.
Both of those dates are good with me. So, do you have a preference? You said, Mr. Knight?
Let me just check. 9th and the 16th. I could make either one. Small preference on the 16th, but I'll be flexible.
I have a preference on the 9th. I have a conflict on the 16th that I'd have to rework something around work.
We also have that weekend, we'll be at that TASA TASB conference, so I don't know if that would impact us choosing this that week.
Let's do it the 9th.
Okay.
Just a request, not a 5 o'clock start again.
Yeah, he said 5:30.
Okay. We can make it whatever you want. We had a lot
Just
tonight.
5 o'clock is really hard to
5:30,
hit.
okay?
Yeah, 5:30 is fine.
Okay.
5 o'clock's just hard.
And
Okay.
Can I ask for one more? And I don't want to pile on the workshops, so not necessarily, maybe not even in September, but we had asked to do sort of a something on SPED, a workshop on the SPED department and getting some feedback. And we've had all the dyslexia speakers, and so I think it's October. We're going to designate as it's Dyslexia Month. And that might just be a good time for us to be able to, get some statistics and find out, how we can bring our community in and try to work together on some of these issues.
So I think I hear maybe a superintendent's update in a future meeting. Is that what the October? Or?
Yeah, at least a superintendent's update. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's important to know what this district is doing with dyslexia. I don't necessarily think it needs to be in a workshop form until we actually get the data and the information.
Okay. Mr. Moses?
Yeah, I was going to say, just want to congratulate all of our campus principals and our staff on a wonderful first day of school. That I had the privilege of going to about 9 campuses today, and it was just really great to see the consistency of kindergarten parent tears and graduating senior mom tears, but it was everyone was excited. Everyone was really thrilled to be back, and it was for everyone from the teachers out to our custodial staff to bus drivers. It was an awesome day. It was really, really fun. But then also tied to that, maybe Patty can make a note, and maybe we'll all remember this, is that maybe in the future, if it just so happens that our board meeting falls on the first day of school, we move it. Because I'll speak for myself, but also probably all of us up here and even people in the audience, I'm sure we all would be much rather have been at dinner tonight hearing about our kids' first day.
Yeah, I didn't see mine today.
I didn't even see. High school didn't get home in
Patty,
time.
you can just
I
make a
didn't see
note
mine at all.
in the future about. I know that that's on all of us, the police, but just. And again, great job and a wonderful first day.
Very good. Okay. Anything else?
I know there was some discussion about certain trustees that would like to attend the agenda setting meeting, and I'd like to propose that trustees Gonzalez and Moses attend the next one.
Very good. Okay. So we need this. Next week's agenda is really not a whole lot to set on that, but the following one. So next Friday, plan on being available sometime after 2 o'clock or so, and we'll work with Dr. Flores and his team on setting the agenda. Good idea, Mr. Matt. And then going forward, Mr. Aguilera, maybe we can set up a rotation and get everybody around on that. Okay? Any other comments? All right. It's 10, 40, and we're adjourned.